Welcome to Great Talk and Entertainment. I'm your host, KJ, and this is the podcast where I review movies and TV shows from all your favorite superheroes, including Marvel Comics, DC Comics, and much more. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. Now let's go, baby. Welcome back to the podcast, everyone, as I continue on for the new Disney Plus series by Marvel Studios, Agatha All Along, and this is a 2-episode season finale, so I'm just going to review episode 8 and 9 on this episode for the spoiler review. So again, if you have not seen this season yet, please pause this, give me a thumbs up before you go, because that would help my YouTube channel grow. Go watch episodes 1 through 9, basically the whole season 1 of Agatha All Along. Come back, listen to all my spoiler reviews of the Agatha All Along series, and let me know how you feel about the series, and let me know what your theories are about this show and what's next to come in the comments below. So again, this is a spoiler review. Y'all been warned. Let's get into it. This episode starts off with Allison realize that she has passed over as she stares at her dead body, and Rio's there to take her away to the other side, as she did. This episode starts off with Allison realizing she has passed over to the afterlife after realizing she sees her body, and Rio, aka Lady Death, is there to take her away. And she also took Lillian at the same time after her ultimate sacrifice. Rio wants to take Billy's soul because it says it disrupts the sacrum balance. And we get this a very emotional, tense scene between Agatha and Rio. And it's about thinking about the truth. And Rio is planning to take the soul of Tommy as well. And Agatha decides to make a deal with her. Says, exchange for her life to be free and Rio to stop pursuing her, and she will give Billy away, and so Rio can take his soul away from Billy, basically, and stop him from, getting Tommy. Because if you remember, we seen Jennifer, Billy, and Agatha start all over again in the beginning of the Witch's Road. And we learn that this whole thing is made up by Billy. And he did it the exact same way like Wanda, his mother, who, again, it seems like they're going to continue on in later Marvel projects to what the relationship between Wanda and Billy Maximoff and how that's going to go, or is that ever going to heal, basically. So Agatha puts on her shoes, and all of a sudden the three, Agatha, Jennifer, and Billy, are in a room that has like a plant-like house, a greenhouse, but it seems like a solitude prison, like if somebody was on the 8th floor. And the idea is this is the actual finish line. And what's very interesting is that we learned that Agatha did a spell bond where Jennifer couldn't get her powers. So we basically learned that Agatha, throughout this whole time, in the past too, of course, in different centuries, has kept Jennifer's power, took it away from her, basically. And so Jennifer does a spell, takes one of Agatha's hairs, ties them up, and breaks the bond, and she is free. But then Billy does the exact same thing, but not in the way Jennifer does. They have this moment where Agatha shows Billy how to find Tommy's soul, but he has to find a body to sacrifice. And he has to use his mind, but Agatha is there to guide him through it, to somewhat kind of enchant his power. Like, it's in a way like Agatha hacked into Billy's power source and did all the work for him, or just guide him through it to help him and show him. And we see a really dark scene where there's these kids who are bullying this kid and drowning this kid's to death in the pool, and that's where Tommy is. And I find that a very interesting move for Marvel Studios, and I just wonder where Kevin Feige and everybody else is going to go with that, because it's a very interesting dark scene that I haven't seen in a Marvel film or show series. And I know it's easy to bring up Thor chopping off Thanos' head. You can mention the Daredevil, the Punisher series, Luke Cage, Jessica Jones series. They were dark and stuff, but now they're adding to the MCU timeline officially. Not recently, but in years last year or the year before. I can't exactly remember, but for me, this is a first time that we've seen a from start to finish a dark scene like that for a Marvel Studio series like that. So it's a very first time in a way, and I thought that was very interesting. And I'm thinking like Tommy is, because we learned Tommy was scared, but obviously he doesn't know where he's at. And we hear the last step. Well, maybe not the last episode of WandaVision, but one of the last, maybe an episode before that. It kind of replays the scene where Vision and Wanda are tucking in Billy and Tommy. And, you hear Wanda saying, "Thank you for choosing me to be your mother." And I thought, okay, there's a key point that's going to happen with that. And what I think is going to happen, just a theory I'd like to share right now before I go back to the recap, is I believe that now Tommy is going to deal with like a trauma. Like he's going to have like the nightmares, he's going to relive how he was found. So, he's probably going to wake up in a hospital. But who is Tommy's parents? Does he have new parents? And how long will it take for Billy to find his brother? Is the question too. So what I think is, in theory, is I think Tommy is going to have a much more deeper struggle. And I think his path is he's going to feel alone. Like maybe he doesn't get the happy family, adopted family. Maybe he comes from a family where it's broken. Maybe, maybe the dad's not around. Maybe the mom's not around. Or maybe both parents are not around. Who knows? But in theory, is he's going to have such a much struggle. And it's probably going to be parallel to the way Billy is. But I think Tommy's going to interact with Rio. And I'm not saying they're going to make a show called Rio all along. But I think the idea of it is maybe, just maybe, Tommy's story is going to be with Rio, a.k.a. Lady Death. Or maybe Jennifer. But either or, don't matter, it's Lady Death or Jennifer. Just in theory, I believe that they're gonna guide Tommy in some capacity, like Agatha has for Billy, but also have a hidden agenda to what they're trying to achieve. So that's what I kind of think, which I'll talk later on, but that's where I think that's going to go with that. But whatever it did, Billy finally vanishes, and then we go to Agatha. And Agatha opens up her necklace. which is like a pocket necklace or a medallion, and it had like a seed of a flower of some sort, and she tried to plant it, but the lights started flickering, and she just needed a little time, but the flower did grow, and it looked like a weeds, like you would see in your backyard, like a dandelion, something like that, right? But it was too late for whatever she was trying to accomplish, and everything collapsed. And then she runs up the stairs, and then she sees Rio, which we get this huge, intense, emotional scene where Rio's ready to take out Agatha because she broke her promise or broke the deal. And as much as it looks like Rio's about to end Agatha's life, here comes Billy, and he does the most heroic thing and actually trusts Agatha to absorb his power but not take too much where he dies. And for a while it looked like, it was it, but she stopped. Again, throughout this episode, we're seeing a softer, more kinder, caring side of Agatha, because as they were going and battling, she tricks Rio, and you would think like she was gonna let Billy just get taken away by Rio. She makes the ultimate sacrifice, and by taking the kiss of death, and by literally kissing Rio, aka Lady Death. And that's the first time, the big build up to, and not the first time, but this is, well, I guess it is the first time we see these two actually kiss. And this is what it's been building up to from this episode, which I thought was very interesting too. And whatever it was, Rio was done. She got what she needed. She took a soul, and she let Billy go. And this is where now it gets very interesting, because when Billy goes home to his parents, he goes upstairs to his room, and this is where he realized that he created all this. He sees the Wizard of Oz Easter eggs or reference. He sees the music. He sees the poster of Down the Witch's Road. He sees a little statue of a tree that he's seen down on the Witch's Road. He sees all that, but he doesn't know how he did it. And I thought, wow, that's cool. And this is where we get to episode 9, where we realize that Agatha is a ghost now, which is kind of like, in a way, she looks more comic book accurate to it. She looks older. She has the white hair, but she still looks like Agatha from when she was alive. So I thought that was very interesting and very cool. And what I'm thinking is, if they're not going to go any further or try to connect this to like a Mephisto or maybe I'm not sure, or another villain. If you just go based off of this show, I think the real answer is Billy and Wanda and Tommy are so powerful, like sometimes they can't control their powers, and sometimes it causes to do these things or create things without them realizing it. Then when we get to episode 9, it starts off with this flashback of Agatha in the year 1750, where she is pregnant and she's on the run from Lady Death, and she is ordered to take Agatha's kid, which his name is Nicholas. And it's funny, this is the Nicholas that could be in that rabbit, but they never explain like how he became a rabbit. We just know that that's where she named the rabbit, or Mrs. Davidson has, and we see through WandaVision. So I wonder where this soul went. It's easy to say it could be in that rabbit if that's the one, but I'm just not convinced that that's what Marvel would go with that particular character, as as they're doing in this. I think there's something much bigger and something more meaningful, because in this, it gives us a 6 years later type thing, because she pleads with Lady Death, Rio, and beg her not to, and the only thing Rio could really offer her is time. So that's when we get that 6 years later, in so 1750, and then 6 years later, this child he's still a boy, he's still young, but they're out there hustling and capturing other witches and taking their ability. And we saw that the first time with Agatha when Nicholas was a baby, basically, an infant, and took the first coven of witches down. And she was breastfeeding. That's what a mom, right? But, we see that, and they hustle their way. And he always asks why. Why does he do this? Like, why does his mom do that? And she never gives him a real answer, but just enough to, keep him calm, keep him convinced, and not really questioning what's really going on. Because I believe that he doesn't know yet. He never knows about what was the thing between her, and Lady Death. And we learned pretty much that the reason why she was doing this is to battle Rio, aka Lady Death, pretty much take her on. And there is a part in this episode where, they play, because throughout this episode they play the song Down, Down the Witch's Road, and we see different eras, different timelines of her just having a bunch of witches attack her with their powers, and she just absorbs them. And, we see, like, different times. I can't tell which version, because a lot of the outfits, I would feel like they're in the same timeline, except the one in the jacket. That could be in 80s, maybe 90s, because I was thinking Greece, but I'm not sure. But we see that. And, another thing they show, we get this, like, heartwarming moment where, in this episode, while they're singing that song, we see that Agatha loved her son. She cared. She was trying to be a good parent. They were laughing and loving each other and hanging out and playing. And, she was always trying to teach him life lessons and everything she could do, And then that night came where the show gets a little dark and the sad truth comes out in this episode. And as they're sleeping, Lady Death takes Nicholas away, or Nicky, as his mother Agatha likes to call him. And then she sees an opportunity again, and I thought this was a young Mrs. Hart, but then when she took her powers, I was like, I didn't know. I'm not sure. I thought it was. It looks like a young version of Mrs. Davison, but I'm not sure. Wasn't really what they were going with that. But they went, because I was thinking, like, did she bring her back to life? Like, could Agatha do it? But if she could, she would have brought Allison back, I would think. But that's still a mystery. And again, I think this has to connect somewhere down the line in another Marvel project. I believe that they have an answer to that, and I think they're saving it for another project in the future. That's what I think. As far as, was that a young Mrs. Davison that she took out? I'm not sure. But that's an idea, but I'm pretty confident. Somebody asked me if any of this would go with, like, Doctor Strange, just on base what I've talked about now in this episode. I say yes, but I'm not 100% sure how that would fit in the next Doctor Strange film. Because you got to think, everybody, in the post-credit scene, he has to deal with Madu, No, Mabu. Sorry, yep, Mabu. And I can't imagine Agatha, Lady Death involved in that. But I could be wrong. We don't know how this works. Because I thought the Witch's Road was like another afterlife, like the Soul Stone. But so I'm not really sure in that part. But what I think is that what we see with Agatha is after Rio takes her son, Agatha's son, she has that panic attack. She's crying. And this is where I think she really got cold-hearted. This is where I think she became the villain. Like, let me use Star Wars as an example. It's love that turns a person evil to the main villain. Anakin Skywalker loved Padme, or Padawan, and no, Padme. That's who it was. I apologize. But and then she got taken away from him, right? And he was furious, so he became the villain, Darth Vader. This is kind of like that in a sense. She was not a witch, but she was just a loving, caring mother that was just trying to raise her son. Who's the father? I don't know. Maybe Mephisto. Maybe somebody else. Maybe a guy. Just a guy who's not with no power. No magic, no mutant. Maybe it's just a regular dude. Or it could be a wizard. But who would that be? I don't know. But for this, I believe that for whatever reason, I believe she was just trying to live a regular life. I believe that. The way this episode explained it to me is I feel like she was just trying to live her regular daily life like they did in the 1750s and up, right? Like that, whatever that is, I think she was just trying to live a regular life and just try to survive so her son can grow up and have a better life than her. That's what I think. But I think that when you take that away from her, like Rio did, she became the villain. Because I think her whole purpose now was just to be a good mother. That's what I got out of it. Could be wrong. Because in that episode, then it goes back to the present times with Billy, as the truth reveals, again, like we revealed that he made this up, but he also murdered them. And that's where we get the realization Agatha is going to haunt Billy as a ghost. And Billy has to figure out how to fix this. But the one thing I notice is Agatha told Billy, like, you'll get used to it. Don't let this haunt you. Don't let this eat you up. But he's so mad because he wouldn't do that to Allison. He wouldn't do that to Lillian because he knows what they did was the most kindest thing to do and just try to be a friend. So he doesn't want to. But Agatha always likes to throw out, like, you're just like your mother or Wanda. And that annoys him. But at the end of this episode, we see Billy finally makes peace with Agatha. And they both just go out and look for Tommy. And where does that go? I don't know. Let's start with some topics first. Let's start with Agatha as a ghost. Now, this is Marvel's version of, with Star Wars, the Force Ghost, or the ghost of the Force. Right? There's a reason, and so with Star Wars, it's basically, you can only see them, right, until the last lesson that your Jedi Master needs to teach you, which is always usually something that they had to confront the white elephant in the room. They had to look themselves in the mirror or face a fear or let something go and move on, like forgive themselves, basically. And this is what Marvel's version of it would look like. And for Tom or Billy, it's Tommy, right? So what I think is now, I believe since they're not going to make Agatha a villain, this is the redemption of Agatha. I think when she does this kind deed, she gets to go to the afterlife, to whatever that is. I don't know if it's heaven, Valhalla, who knows? We know there's a Valhalla. I would assume there's a heaven if you go based off of Captain America and the first Avengers movie. I guess, right? I would assume that. I'd guess that. But whatever how the person or the character interprets what the afterlife looks like for them, I think that's the idea of it. So whatever that is for Agatha, which I'm assuming is to reunite with her son. But is that a thing, or does Nicholas have a bigger story? So whatever it may be between that, I mean, there's so many ideas they can go with this, but I do believe that in a later on Marvel project, presumably, this is where we kind of get the idea of, again, Agatha having redemption, and she's going to do this one kind deed that kind of cleanse her soul. Right? And she makes peace with it, and then she can go. You know, this ain't like Lady Death gonna pick her up. I think Lady Death is evil, but I think there's a good, like there's a light. You know, maybe an angel, or the opposite of Lady Death, right? So I don't know what that would look like or who that would be, but there's a possibility with that. But I think we're going to see Agatha, the good witch, basically, is where I think it's going. Kind of like Lord of the Rings. I think they're going to go Lord of the Rings with it, too. It wouldn't be far-fetched with that. The same format with Gandalf. That's all I'm saying. But there's a way, and I'm pretty sure they have an idea. I just don't know what show or movie that would fit in. But I would say in the year 2026 or the year 2027, that's where I think they'll go back, unless they want to give it another shot and make a Blade film, which I think they should. But that's just different. Now, let's talk about Rio, aka Lady Death. I think she's going to play a bigger part. I think we'll see her again. And I have a feeling she'll be in the next Doctor Strange film. I don't think yet we had a chance to see Doctor Strange come close to death. Like, I mean, yes, we have from the first film, from the car wreck. But this would be the first time Doctor Strange sees death in person. Like, I think this is the time where the idea of Doctor Strange making the ultimate sacrifice like Iron Man did in Avenger Endgame. I think there's an idea of that going to happen to Doctor Strange. And I think Lady Death will appear in that type of capacity. That's what I think. But I loved her in this show. I thought she's the Green Witch. I like just how she did everything. I mean, if you remember, like, where Rio in episode 8, Rio like just cuts the wall where you think it's just a background. We thought it was real, and she just cuts it, like, and it kind of reminded me of WandaVision, where Agatha was in the director's seat. This is kind of like a prop studio, and obviously that's the reference of Billy being like his mom Wanda, and created the Witch's Road. And because realistically, if you remember when Rio's on the roof and the neighbors saw this, and one of the neighbors with the mustache, I like to call it mustache, he was like, this again? Like, this ain't the first time this happened. It's probably talking about WandaVision. But the witches, they probably all realistically were still in Westview Point, just walking around the neighborhood, just looking strange and weird. Right? And I like that. I really like that about that. And I like how Rio was the director to this stuff. She was the producer. She was watching it. It's called Agatha all along, but Rio was watching it the whole time. She was watching everything, and nobody noticed her. That's why in certain episodes, you're like, where's Rio? How does she survive? And you never saw her. She was literally behind the scenes. She was watching the show, like a play or a musical or a Broadway. I mean, that's what I loved about Lady Death. Like, she was the producer of this in the sense of these trials. And I feel bad for Westview Point. Like, ever since Wanda came in, it's been so screwed up. And ever since Agatha and all these witches over centuries did what they've been doing, this small town in New Jersey is just... I don't know how it's surviving, but it's so normal to them. They're just like, yeah, just another Monday or another Tuesday or another Wednesday, since it's always aired on Wednesday. So, that's what I liked about Rio, aka Lady Death. She was just playing the game. She was putting everybody in the right place, like. But the whole time, I think she was just trying to get Billy, obviously. And I think she wanted to try to get Tommy's soul too. So to me, it explains, like, even Lady Death knows how powerful Wanda is and her kids are. So that's what I think. Let's talk about Billy. I think Billy is going to he's going to be the hero. He's going to be the hero of the Young Avengers. Right? I think he's going to be the main piece that holds all together. I think that's the idea of it. Because I think that he has more experience than the other Young Avengers, potential members of the Young Avengers, which you can see they're building this up. So I wonder if this will be a movie or a Disney Plus movie, which that'd be cool too. So there's a lot going on, and it'd be interesting. But as far as what I liked about Billy and what I think about this character on this show, I would say, well, here's what I like about it with Billy. I like the idea of Billy and maybe Tommy, but mostly Billy is going to have to battle Wanda at some point. I think he loves the life he has now that he was given. And I think that he has people in his life now that he wants to protect. I think Wanda, obviously she lost the love of her life, and then she lost to Thanos. That's an important thing, but I think what it is, Wanda, from her history, she was from Russia, a missile bomb from the Tony Stark company. What was it? I think that, with her struggle and how the government didn't want her on the team, I think the Avengers were scared of her, was an issue. But I think the difference between this and that is Billy is not going through what Wanda went through, but I think there's innocent people that he actually cares about in his life. with Wanda, she was protecting the Avengers, but they all had their own ability and they could all stand on their own business, basically. Cap can handle his own. Black Widow can handle her own. Iron Man can handle his own. And Vision as well. So, like, she struggled just trying to fit in and figure out who she's supposed to be. Yeah, she fell in love with Vision and stuff. But she never really had a family where she had to protect. And that's why she did what she did in WandaVision. Billy's literally got a family now. A new family, basically. And he has a lover. He has friends. And he actually has people to care about, too, within that neighborhood. And I don't think he wants to lose that. And now he's looking for his brother, Tommy. So he's going to have to confront Wanda, his mother, one day. And I think that's the battle we're going to get with Billy. So to see him in this season was really cool, and I loved it because we watched him grow. We watched him learn about himself. We see that, he's not going to make the same mistakes like Wanda, Agatha, Rio, Jennifer, Lillian, Allison made. I think he's studied and watched them make the mistakes. And I think all the advice that he's gotten from the other group of witches, I think he's taken that all in. And he's like, okay, maybe he's looking at it from a different viewpoint. And that kind of makes him the one to be the one, basically. And that's what I liked about that. Him as this character, what we see him grow into that position in his life. That's what I like about that character. Now, I got some theories about Tommy. Like I said earlier, I mentioned that he's going to be the one that has maybe not so good, happier life. Because that scene where that body, that the bullies were drowning this child in the pool to death, that was crazy. And I'm not saying this kid didn't have loving parents, but I believe that since Billy had it, Tommy has to have the opposite. In my opinion, if you're going to storytell this in a show or a movie, that's what I think. And Tommy could be the villain for a Young Avengers film, kind of like Thor and Loki, in the sense of it. Maybe Tommy wants to watch the world burn. In a way, maybe he has that low-key experience where he feels like the world owes him. He didn't deserve to what he's been going through, right? And maybe he has to, again, he probably wants to turn the world upside down and change it all and get rid of people who bullies him. Get rid of, he becomes like Wanda, has his mom's instinct in the sense. That's where I think, in theory, they could go with that with Tommy. And I don't really have a lot on him. I just think that he's going to have a much rougher experience. And it would make sense for him to be the main villain for the Young Avengers if they don't want to do a Mephisto, a Thanos, a Galactus, or whatever. It could. That's a possibility. But we don't even know when they're going to release the Young Avengers series or film. But that's an idea that I think that they're thinking about, to me, Marvel Studios and Kevin Feige. So that's all I got. But other than that, if I want to just season 1 of Agatha all along, I'm giving it a 1 out of 10. I'm giving it a 10. What a great season. I love the story. I love the actresses and actors. I love everything about this show. It was so much fun to watch. And to me, I'll give you this too. Agatha to me is the first Marvel show where they didn't have an episode that felt like in an Avengers movie. In every other Disney Plus series with Marvel, there's always like one episode that feels like in an Avengers movie. They did it with WandaVision. They did it with She-Hulk. They did it with the special ones like the Guardian of the Galaxy Holiday Special, or even like just like the Moon Knight series, Falcon and the Winter Soldier series. There's at least one episode that felt like an Avengers movie or an event that the Avengers would be part of. This show didn't have none of that, and I think that's better. And I think that what makes this series a lot better, because even it was kind of like that too in season 1, Loki. So I get it, and this show is kind of better to me. I'd put this in the number 1 in my top 5 Marvel series show, Disney Plus series. Like this one's tops them all. It being my number 1. I guess my number 2 would be Loki and Stuart, but that's the idea of it. I like where that went. I like how they did it so differently from any other Disney Plus series that they've done. And I think now moving forward, I believe that they're changing the format to how they present these Disney Plus shows by Marvel. And I think that's going to be better, and I think it's going to expand the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I definitely can't wait to see what's next with these. I like that there's something really special that's going to happen with these particular characters. And that gives them, Marvel Studios, more time to build up that Avengers, to help them, give them more time to really work on Doctor Doom and the Fantastic Four. Like, this happened here, but this else is going on. I think what all this is happening, I think whatever event's going to happen in the Fantastic Four, I think it was happening at the same time. They're not connected, but, there's an idea of like how this is all going to make sense. I think multiverse story is going to end, but I think the magic universe of this it's going to make sense too. So there's a lot going on, and I like where it's going. So I can't wait to see what happens next. But again, I love this season. If you have not seen this, guys, and you're watching this all my spoiler reviews, guys, like, please go rewatch this. Please watch it again and again. Like, I think this show deserves a season 2. And I know they're not going to do a season 2 for Moon Knight, but I think they should. Because these two shows could really work together and mash up in a way. So I loved it. I can't wait for more Marvel content. But that's my review for episode 8 and 9. And my review for season 1 of Agatha all along. I think very creative. I loved it. Great storytelling. And everybody on the cast of this show carried this show in a perfect teamwork way. And you can tell everybody was just having fun doing this. So that's my review, y'all. Thank you so much. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel, Great Talk and Entertainment official channel. Subscribe, hit that notification button so you guys be updated with all my latest content. Thank you guys, and peace